Hi there. Welcome to our mini podcast on excerpts from the book Unschooling to University. Today, we're going to talk about the 15 problems with testing unschoolers and homeschoolers. Thank you for joining me. My name is Judy Arnall. I'm an education consultant. I am certified in the brain story, and I have been teaching about non-punitive parenting and education practices for the past 22 years. I am a veteran unschooler of 5 children who are now adults, and 3 are university graduates, and one's in university, and one is just wrapping up grade 12. I've written 5 books on parenting and non-punitive education, and they've been translated into various languages. But the book, Unschooling to University, it focuses on my kids' friends and my friends' kids, 30 of who applied to post-secondary institutions after unschooling anywhere from 3 to all 12 years. Of those 30, 20 have already graduated. 10 went into STEM careers, including 4 in engineering, 10 went into humanities, and 10 went into the arts. So let's look today at what are the problems with testing. Testing is the most common form of assessment in schools, yet it is problematic in unschooling and homeschooling because of the unique content and delivery method of education. First problem, unschooling learning is neither compartmentalized nor linear, the very forms in which tests are designed to measure. And exams test the wrong outcomes. The Concordia University study with Chang, 2011, was one study that measured not what the 12 unschooled children learned, rather what they didn't learn that the government thought they should be learning. We could say the test was measuring different objectives. Unschoolers don't follow subjects or a school year. There are too many areas in science, social studies, history, geography, languages, and art to test children. Unschoolers who choose an area to learn about don't go looking for a test in that area to measure their learning achievement. There's no point. As well, it'd be unfair to subject unschoolers to grade-level exams, as they may not have chosen to learn about any of the topics tested on the exam. Learning is constant across all disciplines. Only schools chop learning into subject areas, periods, and school years. Mothers worry, and dads, if their children are taking enough vitamins for health. Governments are concerned on whether children are learning. If you look at that analogy, parents don't measure the vitamin A in their child's body every week to see whether or not it's been absorbed. And by the same token, nor should teachers have to give tests every month to test learning. Parents know that over a period of a month, their child will eat a variety of good foods that will give him or her the nutrients their bodies need. Similarly, parents know that their children learn. The trajectory of educational progress is often more that of a butterfly rather than a bullet. It is neither straight nor linear. It has plateaus and hills and valleys that depend on the child's development, age, interests, and personality. Many times, learning is invisible. Learning takes place even when there is no output or measurable proof. When children do not write exams, make product, or write an essay, there's no output to prove the learning. But it doesn't mean that learning has not taken place. And that's why recorded parental observation should be considered a valid and valuable assessment tool, as it is often the only one parents have outside of the learner's self-assessment. Number 2, assessment changes the learning. When assessments enter the picture, the nature of play changes. As soon as outcomes are targeted, play becomes directed and is no longer free or spontaneous. If children know they will be tested, they will focus on the material they will be tested on instead of enjoying the learning for its own sake. They learn to allocate their time and energy. They don't waste time learning what will not be on the test. Nothing kills the enjoyment of reading a good novel faster than knowing one will have to write a book report on it. Children cannot explore new subjects or delve deep into subjects because measurable outcomes must usually be met under significant time constraints. For example, when my daughter was advised in school to take some courses to raise her GPA before applying for a master's program, it became clear that education has lost its emphasis on pure learning and placed it on marks. Marks do have their place, but should they determine curriculum or should curriculum determine the marks? Many teachers complain that teaching to the test takes a lot of time and places unnecessary constraints on true learning, in that it curbs meandering and discourages natural curiosity. I agree. Even option courses have grades. Why? The purpose of options is to stimulate a child's interest in an area. It's a low-stakes way to try out something new. If a child knew he wouldn't be marked, he might take more risks in learning and strive to meet new challenges. Unschooling promotes true learning that is free of the bondage of marks. Number 3, testing takes a lot of time and is stressful. It's expensive and time-consuming, and it takes time away from actual teaching and learning, which is the main function of schools. Number 4, testing becomes a content and may not be the best way to learn. How do teachers know they've nailed it? They read children's faces. When they don't have that feedback, such as in online learning, they give a lot of assignments to provide the necessary assessment component. My son once took a grade 10 physical education course online. Yes, phys ed. It consisted of 50 hours of writing assignments and only 75 hours of recorded physical activity. Clearly, the school did not trust the children to do the physical activity, and they needed a way of evaluating them. So they assigned them 10 quizzes, 3 essays, 2 projects, and mandatory marked written discussion. The writing component of the class was far more difficult than it would have been to take the class in a physical building. This does not make sense. Teachers and parents know that kids are learning when they're engaged and enthusiastic. Number 5. Tests assess teaching ability at the learner's expense. Teaching and learning is like throwing and catching a ball. Teachers know when a child catches it by the excitement on their faces. But it is hard for teachers when they throw a ball and the child does not even try to catch it. In school, the responsibility for learning must be on both the teacher ball thrower and the student ball catcher. But in unschooling, it is only the learner's responsibility. Number 6, tests often don't tell where areas of weakness are. A single number or letter mark does not tell a story when a teacher assesses a student. Many biases can positively or negatively influence a test score, such as misunderstanding the meaning of a question. Most institutions or programs will not allow a student to review their marked tests to see where they need to improve to move on to the next level of learning. This is wrong. All test takers should be allowed to view their mistakes, and at the very least be shown the correct answers to show where they went wrong and how to fix it. A grade of 80% is great, but it doesn't tell them how to correct the 20% of the questions they got wrong. There's great value, however, in using tests for self-assessment. If a child wants to start a math program and needs to determine his level, a test is a good tool. The resulting mark is insignificant. Its importance is as an indicator of the optimal starting level for the student. Number 7, Tests are for future students, not current ones. Standardized achievement tests allow schools to plan improved delivery and content for the next year's crop of students, rather than the current students. Consequently, the test results may not correctly evaluate learning. 8. Tests often measure the ability to take tests instead of measuring the learning. When my children began taking tests at about 12 years of age, they needed instruction on how to mark the bubbles and not get lost on the bubble sheet. They needed guidance on how to gauge and budget the time allotted for the test and how to reduce pre-test anxiety. Often, test questions are formulated so poorly that the learner cannot decipher what is being asked. The problem is the test, not the learner's knowledge. The problem is the test, not the learner's knowledge. Unschooled children are not used to tests and may do poorly even when they know the content, simply because they're not schooled in the testing procedure. One of my sons had a bad experience that illustrates this. Going into an exam, he was not told to reset his calculator before the teacher cleared it, essentially sabotaging his configurations. His math test answers were incorrect because his graphing calculator was in radon mode instead of degree mode. Obviously, the test results did not accurately reflect his knowledge. Number 9, testing must cover a beginning and an end. But learning doesn't end or begin. It doesn't start in September and end in June. It goes off track naturally. My children learned the most during the summer months when they had access to a broader range of books and videos from the library. During the school year, we were busy running to outside activities, groups, play dates, and we often didn't have much time to read a book in a hammock. So if the kids had been tested in September, they would have shown a great increase in knowledge since June. By the same token, June testing would show less progress. As well, there are dry spells when kids don't appear to learn much academically, and that's okay. After a dry spell comes a tsunami of provable academic learning. Testing cannot possibly capture the ebbs and flows of meandering learning. As well, testing has time limits. Very few events in real life are timed. The stress of a timed event can impact the learner and prevent her from successfully outputting her knowledge, resulting in an artificially low mark. Number 10, testing only measures the learning during a particular chunk of time immediately prior to testing. It does not measure knowledge retention a few years after testing. That is to say, it is not an indicator of true intrinsic learning. If leaving school achievement tests were given to adults 2 years out of school, they would probably fail them unless they were actively working in the field. Number 11, tests teach values. Test questions are very school biased and give a child the impression that school is normal and homeschooling is therefore abnormal. His learning experience and that of his homeschool peers is not reflected in the questions. For example, my daughter took a grade 3 provincial math exam and figured out at age 8 that over 70% of the questions featured boy gendered scenarios. What does that tell her about math and girls? Because parents rarely see the tests that are given to their children in school, these biased embedded values are rarely caught. Number 12, test measures subject matter content only. Testing does not measure the fundamental soft skills essential for success in life: initiative, honesty, creativity, problem solving, or interpersonal communication skills. Children may be highly gifted in intelligence areas such as music, art, dance, drama, sports, movement, and other personal skills that cannot be measured by testing. Heavy emphasis on test results in core subjects tells children who excel in art, humanities, and sports that their intelligences are inferior. 13, High stakes testing promotes cheating. When my kids went to university, their exams are weighted at anywhere from 50 to 90% of the final course mark. In one class, if you failed the final exam, you failed the course. When I asked why the weighting was so high, the explanation was that cheating in course assignments was rampant, and that it is in an exam environment, it was easier for administration to control cheating. 14, grades can damage self-worth and self-confidence. Grading compares a child to others rather than evaluating her own progress. Grades hurt self-esteem, especially in children with special needs and learning disabilities that have many alternative aptitudes, intelligences, and abilities. As Dr. Thomas Armstrong and Dr. Howard Gardner note, there are at least 8 ways to be intelligent. School tests only measure 2, mostly linguistic, which is language, and logical abilities. 15, learning can be assessed through many forms other than testing. Assessment of portfolios, projects, photographs, physical evidence, observations, and self-reflection are valid to prove learning. However, this form of evaluation can make it difficult to compare one student to another, a required element in our environment of mass delivery, standardized curriculum, and conveyor belt education. Bias is embedded. One teacher may reward an essay with an A, another might evaluate it quite differently. The best assessment always is the learner's self-assessment. Another point is, do we test for social, emotional, and physical health? There are 4 dimensions to a child's development: social, emotional, physical, and cognitive. As a society, we do not regularly or mandatorily test a child's physical, emotional, or social health to ensure that taxpayers are getting a reasonable return on the funding of parenting programs or healthcare delivery or even child benefit payments. We leave it up to the parents to monitor their child's health in those 3 dimensions and ensure satisfactory progress from age 6 to 18 years. To demand that parents subject their children to a well child checkup every year in exchange for continuing to receive their child tax benefit would be considered undue interference in the private realm of parenting. We have to trust that parents are not giving their children ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So why are we so concerned with testing a child's cognitive health every year? Are they learning? Are they keeping up with their cohorts? And why is it important that they keep up with their cohorts in learning? What is wrong with personalized learning that allows comparison only in relation to a child's own progress? As in healthcare, government regulation and interference in unschooling and homeschooling should be non-existent. We need to trust parents. In 99.999% of homeschooling families, parents have their children's best interests at heart, and their well-being firmly entrenched as their first priority. We have to trust that parents know their child best in all 4 areas of development and give them the ultimate say over their child's education and cognitive development in the same way we trust them with their child's emotional, social, and physical development. Test taking is a life skill and we all need to learn it. But there should absolutely, at the very least, be no marks until high school or even beyond. We take tests for driver's license, yoga teaching qualifications, swimming and karate levels, and post-secondary admittance. But do we really need to start taking tests when children are 6 years old? No. At that age, they don't need to endure the stress that testing causes. They will learn test-taking skills when they need to. Grades are also unknown to our children, at least until high school. When they needed to take tests, they caught on pretty quickly on what they needed to do. Believing that self-evaluation was the best form of assessment, we asked our children from time to time, "Hey, what was interesting about that? What did you learn from this?" We did not record their responses. We asked questions to start them down another line of thought. Whether they chose to pursue it or not was up to them. Our record keeping consisted of keeping track of the resources we offered to the children, not what they produced with them. Much of the time, they didn't produce anything that looked schooly. How do you write in educational jargon that the kids put on a puppet play over their bunk beds? When they produced something interesting, we took lots of photographs and videos. That was our assessment. And those are things I will still treasure today and always. Thank you for listening to this, and please keep in touch. Join our blog at unschoolingtouniversity.com, which is probably where you found this. Join our Facebook group or page if you want to know of more articles coming up. We have a group called Unschooling STEM, and if you want to purchase the book, it's on Amazon or available at the website at professionalparenting.ca. Thank you very much and have a good day.